You wake up already anxious, before anything has happened, before the day has even started. You tell yourself it's irrational. You tell yourself there's no real threat. But here's what new research found. Your body disagrees with you. Scientists drew blood from people with clinically diagnosed anxiety and compared it to people without it. The anxious group had something measurable in their blood, something you can see under a microscope. Their immune system was inflamed, not metaphorically, literally inflamed, the same biological process that happens when you have an infection. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly which immune molecules are involved, how they get into your brain, and what this means for how we think about anxiety entirely. Researchers at the National Institute of Medical Sciences and Nutrition in Mexico drew blood from 34 young adults, 17 with clinically diagnosed anxiety, 17 without. Their findings were published in Frontiers in Cellular Neuroscience. A separate, larger review in Brain, Behavior and Immunity examined this same question across the wider research literature. Both links are in the description. Now, let's get into it. For decades, anxiety was treated almost entirely as a problem in the mind. A pattern of thoughts, a misfiring of fear circuits, something to be addressed through psychology alone. But over the past 10 years, a different picture has emerged. Researchers began noticing something odd. People with chronic inflammatory diseases, arthritis, autoimmune conditions, even rosacea, had dramatically higher rates of anxiety than the general population. That correlation alone doesn't prove anything. But it raised an uncomfortable question. What if anxiety isn't just happening in the brain? What if it's also happening in the blood? The Mexican study measured specific immune molecules called cytokines. Cytokines are chemical messengers your immune system uses to coordinate its response to threats, infections, injuries, illness. When your immune system is activated, cytokines spike. That's normal. That's healthy. That's your body doing its job. The question is what happens when cytokines are elevated, not because of an infection, but seemingly all the time. In the anxious group, 3 cytokines stood out: IL-6, MCP-1, TNF-alpha. All 3 were significantly higher in people with anxiety than in people without it. And one cytokine, IL-16A, was lower. This wasn't a small statistical blip. This was a consistent, measurable immune signature. Here's where it gets more specific. TNF-alpha and MCP-1 showed something particularly striking. Their levels tracked with anxiety severity, but only within the clinical group. Meaning, among people who already had anxiety, the ones with worse symptoms had higher levels of these molecules. This is the kind of relationship that gets scientists' attention. It's not just anxious people have different blood. It's the more severe the anxiety, the stronger the immune signal. That pattern is hard to explain away as coincidence. So how does inflammation actually reach the brain? This is where the broader research literature, the review published in Brain, Behavior and Immunity, fills in the mechanism. Cytokines like IL-6 don't stay contained in the bloodstream. Under certain conditions, they cross the blood-brain barrier, the protective filter that normally keeps the brain separate from the rest of the body's circulation. Once inside, these inflammatory molecules activate cells called microglia, the brain's resident immune cells. Activated microglia release their own inflammatory signals. And this neuroinflammation has been shown to disrupt the production of key neurotransmitters, including serotonin, the same chemical messenger involved in mood regulation. The review also points to a structure called the NLRP3 inflammasome, a kind of internal alarm system inside immune cells that, when activated, triggers a cascade of inflammatory signaling. Researchers are now investigating whether targeting this inflammasome directly could become a treatment pathway for anxiety disorders. There's another layer to this that deserves your attention: cortisol. We've covered cortisol on this channel before, the body's primary stress hormone. You'd expect cortisol to be high in anxious individuals. That's the conventional assumption. But other research cited in this body of work found something unexpected. Clinically anxious participants showed significantly lower morning cortisol compared to non-anxious participants, alongside significantly higher IL-6, lower cortisol, higher inflammation. Cortisol normally suppresses inflammation. It's part of what keeps your immune system in check. If cortisol regulation is disrupted in anxiety, that may remove one of the body's natural brakes on inflammatory activity. This is one possible piece of the puzzle, though researchers are clear that more work is needed to confirm the pathway. Now here's what this might mean in practical terms. If chronic inflammation contributes to anxiety, and anxiety contributes to chronic inflammation, you have a feedback loop. Stress and anxiety drive inflammatory signaling. Inflammatory signaling, through the brain pathways we just discussed, may intensify anxiety symptoms. The loop reinforces itself. This reframes anxiety not just as a psychological experience, but as a whole-body condition with measurable physical components. That distinction matters because it changes what we look for and potentially what we treat. Now, a critical eye, because this is where most coverage of this topic gets it wrong. The Mexican study had 34 participants, 17 and 17. That is a small sample. Findings from a study this size are exploratory, hypothesis generating, not definitive. The researchers themselves describe it that way directly in their conclusions. The broader review draws primarily on preclinical and animal evidence when discussing mechanisms like the NLRP3 inflammasome. Human clinical trials specifically targeting these pathways for anxiety do not yet exist. And critically, correlation is not causation. We don't yet know with certainty whether inflammation causes anxiety, whether anxiety causes inflammation, or whether some third factor, chronic stress, poor sleep, diet, drives both. The relationship, researchers say, is likely bidirectional, which makes untangling cause and effect even harder. This is genuinely early-stage science, promising, consistent across multiple studies, but early. So where does this leave us? Across multiple independent studies, in different countries, different populations, researchers keep finding the same thing. People with anxiety tend to show a distinct inflammatory signature in their blood. Elevated IL-6, elevated TNF-alpha, elevated MCP1. The mechanism connecting that inflammation to the brain is becoming clearer. Through the blood-brain barrier, through microglial activation, through disrupted neurotransmitter production. What it does not yet tell us is whether treating inflammation would meaningfully treat anxiety. That question is what the next generation of clinical trials is now being designed to answer. But the old idea that anxiety lives only in your thoughts no longer fully matches what the evidence shows. Your immune system may be part of the conversation your brain is having with itself every single day. What would it mean to treat anxiety as a condition of the whole body, not just the mind? Leave your answer in the comments. Both studies are linked in the description. As always on this channel, the source comes first. Subscribe if you want more, and we'll see you in the next one.